Hi. So far on this blog, you've seen me fairly focused with working on Masterpiece. Unfortunately, life doesn't always work that way, and the last couple of weeks have been no exception. So I've been kind of busy with a whole lot of ongoing routine kind of tasks, so I haven't had much time to work on it. So the rest of this post is going to be fairly untechnical and not related to Masterpiece. So if you don't care, then feel free to move on and join me next week or maybe the week after. We'll see. But yeah, so I've been there've been a few things that have sort of taken up my time. The first is the Loopy update, and the last one was actually before the iPad Air 2 came out. And there have been a few things that I've had to work through, some glitches that have required sort of some diagnosis and workarounds. And I've had to make a little sample app that demonstrates some weird stuff that the device is doing and figure out how to work with that. And I'm also adding some new features, which would be kind of cool. You've probably already seen some of them that I posted about. And there'll be some more. And there's an issue that I still have to figure out, be it in this update or maybe the next one, where if you're monitoring using Audio Bus, it's a bit tricky. See, a lot of people want to use a piece of hardware as input, but also monitor through it because it's going through the iPad adds a little bit of latency. Not much, but a bit. So it makes sense to monitor through the hardware itself because that's completely zero latency. But when you do that, you need to make sure that you turn off monitoring in Loopy, otherwise you get two slightly out of phase signals because the signal path that goes through the iPad is slightly longer. So when you're using Loopy on its own, that's quite easy to do because you just turn off monitoring and you're set. But with Audio Bus, it's a bit different because you need to monitor some audio or you'll never hear it at all. So for example, say you've got a guitar plugged in through your audio interface and you're using Sound Prism for chords. The problem is if you mute in Loopy right now, you're not going to hear Sound Prism at all. So you'll only ever hear the recorded and looped back parts, which isn't really what you need. So it's in Loopy right now, it's sort of all or nothing. You can have the monitor coming in, the guitar and Sound Prism, or no audio at all. That's a bit of a problem. So I figured out a way to have sort of two separate signal paths. So it will recognize when one of the inputs is from the microphone and will treat that differently from inputs that are just an app that don't actually come from live audio. So it's going to be a bit of mucking about to implement that, but I think it's worth doing to get it right. And maybe I'll find a way to pop that into the AudioBus SDK itself. I haven't quite figured out how to make it work yet, but yeah, there's that. So that's the Loopy update, and that's going to take another, I don't know, week, 2 weeks. It's hard to know with these sorts of things. Then there's Audio Bus as well. We've had some funny reports about some performance stuff. I don't want to go into too much detail yet because we're still investigating. But there's certain hardware that is behaving a bit strangely, and we've been looking into that and found a workaround. And so there'll be an Audio Bus update coming at some point. So that's sort of ongoing stuff. And the Audio Bus forum has been recently updated, which is beautiful and shiny and new. But it used to be running an old version of Vanilla, which is the forum software we use, and it's been discontinued. It's not we can't get security updates for it anymore. So apart from that, it was also glitching every now and then and behaving a bit strangely. So I decided to blow a few days and update it. So that took a little bit of time, but now it's running very nicely. However, the other problem is it's a nice problem to have, but there are so many people visiting the forum and the website now that the server that we run them on is only barely coping. We're getting outage notices almost daily. I mean, only for a minute or so. It just looks like it's blocking the request because there are so many other requests coming in. But it's time we move to another server, something that's a bit more capable. So rather than update the system that we're currently on, which is managed, so you can get a managed and you can get unmanaged VPSs. That's virtual private server, which is sort of like a virtual computer that runs on a server. And the managed ones are all well and good, but whenever it goes down or there's a problem, I need to email someone and ask them to fix it, which always takes time, and I'm perfectly capable of doing it myself. So with a Tasty Pixels servers, I recently migrated over to a VPS with Linode, who are a really popular hosting provider, and I had a lovely time setting up a Linux installation with the Apache web server and MySQL, and set up mail servers, and it's running really nicely. I've sort of tuned it to exactly how it needs to be for the kind of users that we see, and it's not missed a beat. So I'm going to do the same thing with AudioBuster stuff. So I've started that this week as well. And it's fun. It's a lovely change of pace from programming, but it is time consuming. And of course, along with all the other things, has been taking time away from working on my pet new project. So this is going to continue for maybe another week, hopefully not too much longer. So bear with me, but we will be getting back to it fairly soon, I hope. And until then, that's all from me. So I'll speak to you again next week. Maybe I'll have some interesting stories to tell. We'll see. If not, probably next week we'll be back on task and yeah, be pushing Masterpiece further. Okay, speak to you next week. Bye.